A decapitated body is the last thing anyone expects to find, but what makes this one even more shocking is when and where it was found. Put yourself in this poor postman's shoes. It's spring, a beautiful sunny morning, nearly midday on a Monday. It couldn't be any more tranquil. You're doing the rounds in the suburbs of Lewisville, Texas, when all of a sudden you see what looks like red paint splattered across one of the driveways. There's a small rumbling noise coming from nearby like a tiny engine. You come closer and spy what looks like a Halloween prop. A person's leg covered in bright red blood sticks out from behind a white pickup truck. For a moment, your brain just dismisses what you're looking at. It's a Halloween prop, that's all it is. Some kind of sick Halloween trick in spring. The letters tremble in your hands as you carefully tiptoe your way around the side of the truck and look at the dead body clearly. It's a woman. She's coated with so much blood it's hard to tell what color her clothes are supposed to be. Your stomach turns and you throw up as you see the worst part of all. She has no head. Birds chirp overhead oblivious. You collapse against the side of the pickup truck, doing your best not to faint. That's when you notice where the rumbling sound has been coming from this whole time. Peering into the bed of the truck, you see two chainsaws. One of them still running. Both are clogged up with blood and human tissue. April 26, 2010, a man named Jose Fernando Corona brutally murdered his wife at home in Lewisville. He used two chainsaws to do it, decapitating her violently before dragging her body out into the street to be discovered by a postman around 11 a.m. Neighbors had heard the sound of the chainsaw, but no screaming or struggle, thinking it was just someone chopping back the trees. None of them had even looked out of their windows. Soon after the police arrived on the scene, Jose's daughter rushed home. She informed the police that she and her partner had received a call from Jose saying he had done it. He had killed her and he was going to drag her body next door. They took a look at the body and confirmed to the police it was indeed her mother. Jose and Maria had been fighting for a while. Their marriage was rapidly falling apart. Sources close to the family claimed that Jose had ended up having a mental breakdown just prior to the murder. The hunt for Jose began, but almost immediately ran into a roadblock. They identified his car as a 2005 Toyota Sequoia SUV and immediately went to work tracking down that car to see where it might have gone. It was only later that they found out that after committing the murder, Jose had gone to a car dealership in Dallas. Persuading the dealership to let him have a test drive, Jose had gotten to a gold 1991 Ford Ranger and never came back. By the time they worked that part out, Jose had ample time to flee the state in any number of directions. They needed to figure out where he could have gone. The first to be investigated were family members, but Jose had a large extended family that spread all across the U.S. and beyond. Within Texas, he could have gone to Euless, Grapevine, Minola, Austin, or Houston. But it was also possible he would have headed further afield to Oklahoma, Washington, or even Mexico. Indeed, Mexico is anyone's best guess for where Jose ended up. The Ford Ranger did not go through any border checkpoints to Mexico, but many believe that Jose may have ditched the car and walked across the border down into Laredo on the day after the murder was committed. To this day, he has never been found. In many ways, Jose Fernando Corona got lucky. Living close to the Mexico border with no family to the south gave him a quick escape route out of U.S. jurisdiction to escape his crime of passion. What is far more impressive, though, is a criminal who is able to evade capture while remaining on U.S. soil. Robert William Fisher's story mirrors Jose Fernando Corona's in many ways. Both are stories of men stuck in unhappy marriages in suburban America who resort to extreme violence to escape. But Fisher is definitely a shade more calculated than Corona ever was. A quiet man who liked to keep to himself, Robert Fisher lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. While close friends knew that his wife Mary wanted a divorce, no one knew what awaited her and their two young children. Neighbors on the Fisher Street in Scottsdale jumped out of their skins at the sound of an enormous explosion ripping apart their house. Rushing outside and calling the fire department, the neighbors could do nothing but watch as the firefighters desperately fought to control the blaze for hours. By the time it was safe enough for anyone to go inside, it was certain there would be no one alive left inside the property. They were right. In the master bedroom, Mary's charred body lay apparently asleep in bed. In the children's room, both their little boy and little girl lie asleep in their beds. On the surface, it seemed like a freak accident, a faulty gas pipe and a quick death. But things were not adding up. The gas pipe had been manually disconnected from the back of the furnace. There was a candle that had been left out, low to the ground so the flammable gas would have steadily accumulated by the ceiling and filled the room until finally drifting low enough to touch the candle. Worse than that, the autopsy clearly showed Mary and the children had not died in a fire. Both children had their throats sliced from ear to ear. Mary had the same treatment as well as a gunshot wound to the back of her head. Also, where was Mary's car and where was Robert? It didn't take long for police to declare Robert Fisher as the sole suspect in the case. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors all quickly began to spill stories about the unhappy couple. Robert had been the child of divorced parents, something he'd never been able to move past. He was a controlling husband, quick to anger, and could exhibit flashes of shocking violence. On top of that, he worked as a firefighter, so he knew how to burn down a house on a delay. Neighbors reported hearing the couple fighting late the previous night. It was likely that this was a conversation about the divorce papers that Mary was serving him with. The fighting then subsided late in the evening, and it wasn't until close to 9 a.m. that the house exploded. Investigators believe that Fisher had committed the murders around the time the fighting stopped and set up the house to blow on a delay, giving him time to escape. The hunt began for Fisher's wife's car, and it wasn't long before the police found it. It was parked up in a forest less than a mile from Fort Apache Indian Reservation. The spot made perfect sense. Fisher was a keen outdoorsman. Just a matter of days before the murders, Fisher had been camping with a friend in the area. He'd been scouting it out as a hiding spot. The police could do little to search the area, famous for its vast networks of caves. There were simply too many hiding spots for them to search comprehensively. Fisher was in good shape, possibly equipped with hunting gear, and he knew the area like the back of his hand. The police search came up short, despite a local telling the police that she'd seen someone who looked like Fisher in the area just a few days prior. Where could he be now? Nobody knows. Some theorize that he went into the caves to die and that his body was simply never found. Others, including leading detectives on the case, strongly believe that he had the skills and fitness to survive in the wilderness undetected for an extended period of time. He could have hitchhiked, quickly escaping the state without a trace. The car could have been a decoy entirely, and he could have gone somewhere else completely. He could have assumed a new identity and found a home in one of America's small rural communities. Or he could still be living in the woods at the age of 63 in 2024. Wherever he is, he successfully evaded the FBI long enough to drop out of their top 10 most wanted list in 2021. Someone who is still on that list, however, and is perhaps one of the most infamous women to ever make the top 10, is the crypto queen herself, Ruya Ignatova. Now infamous on the internet as one of the most successful scam artists of all time, Ruya Ignatova stole around $4 billion, eclipsing anyone you'll see on this list. Wind back 10 years and you'll see her striding out on stage at an enormous OneCoin promotional event. Touted as the successor and replacement to Bitcoin, OneCoin was her baby. Her face was splattered across all of its promotion and marketing. A Bulgarian German working with a degree from Oxford, she was an entrepreneur promising investors a chance to get in on the ground floor of crypto, an opportunity they had sorely missed with Bitcoin shooting up in value. There was just one problem: it was all made up. OneCoin wasn't a real cryptocurrency at all. There was no blockchain, no technology underpinning it, nothing to invest in at all. It was all a house of cards propped up with lies and deception, all the way down to her Oxford degree, which now seems to be totally fictional. But most people didn't realize it at the time. All told, Ruya Ignatova had raked in about $4 billion by 2017, at which point she boarded a private jet in Sofia, Bulgaria, and disappeared. Since then, nobody has seen her. German authorities have been hard at work trying to follow the money trail and apprehend whoever they can find, but Ruya herself has remained elusive. One theory swirling around now about what happened to her doesn't paint a very hopeful picture for her. There's a crime boss in Bulgaria called Taki Christoforos Nikos Amanatidas. Taki is the kind of crime boss that you only really ever see in movies. Head of the Bulgarian mafia, no one ever meets him directly. He's like a ghost. Any dealings you have with him are filtered through multiple people. The allegation is that Ruya, afraid of the authorities closing in on her, paid Taki $100,000 a month to keep her safe from capture. People believe that he was the one who organized her disappearance and sheltered her secretly from the authorities. However, new reports suggest that this relationship soured in 2018, possibly from running out of money, drawing too much heat, or simply getting on his bad side. Reports had started to surface claiming that Taki had killed her years ago. Could this be the reason why the FBI is having such a hard time tracking her down, despite her being one of the most high-profile criminals on the planet? And if we're talking high-profile, criminals probably don't come much more notorious than the next one on our list, second only to Jack the Ripper. When it comes to unsolved serial killers, we got the Zodiac Killer. You know that old film cliche from the start of almost every black horror film or parody? The one where a young couple finds a secluded spot in the woods to park their car so they can make out away from their parents' prying eyes. Then, while they're getting hot and heavy, a mysterious killer appears out of nowhere to murder them. That is a trope thanks to the Zodiac Killer. The location in question was Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. A pair of teenagers were parked at a popular lover's spot when they were attacked by the Zodiac Killer. They were discovered near the vehicle, dead from gunshot wounds. Soon after the murder happened, a letter arrived on the desk of the editors of the San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle, and Vallejo Times-Herald, all local newspapers. The letters contained details that only the killer could know, proving that it was real before going on to present the editors with a cipher to be solved. They were then told that if they didn't publish the contents of the letter, there would be more murders. A second letter soon landed on their desks, taunting the police for not solving the clues fast enough. A few days after that, a school teacher and his wife were able to crack the code. The secret message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all." The murders continued, as did the letters. For 5 years, the Zodiac Killer persistently taunted law enforcement and the press through his letters and puzzles. No matter how much everyone tried, a lot of the codes proved too difficult to crack. While 5 murders were officially attributed to the Zodiac Killer, he claimed to have committed as many as 37 in his correspondence. The more he taunted the police, the more he seemed to have the edge on him. If they could only pin 5 of the 37 murders on him, how could they ever hope to catch him? What's more, his ciphers weren't just simple messages, they were the clues that would point to key information the FBI needed to catch him. All they had to do was solve the riddles and the puzzles. Yet, frustratingly, they just couldn't do it. Even today, with the internet and specific websites set up specifically to crack the codes, people have been unable to identify who he really was. One of the biggest parts of the mystery is what actually happened to him. In 1974, after over 5 years of persistent taunting and mind games, the Zodiac Killer suddenly went totally silent. No more letters, no more clues, perhaps no more killings. What happened to him in 1974 that made him stop? Were the police getting too close to the truth? Did he lose his nerve? Did he make a run for it and leave the country? Did he fall ill? Did he get hit by a bus? Did he attempt to kill someone and have it backfire horribly? Even with all of our modern detective abilities combined on the internet, it seems that no one will ever know the real identity of the killer. Many names have been thrown out there over the years, but none have ever been conclusively proven. What about the FBI's most wanted who have managed to narrowly slip through their fingers despite them knowing exactly who they were? A prime example of this would be William Bradford Bishop, known as Brad by those close to him. Bishop was a very smart man, perhaps one of the smartest on this list alongside the Zodiac Killer. Brad Bishop had it all, at least on the surface. He lived in Bethesda, Maryland. He had a wife and 3 sons, who he lived with as well as his mother. He had a good job too, working in the State Department as an economist. He was earning a good amount and was widely perceived to be good at his job. To anyone on the outside, it seemed like Brad was living the American dream. But there was something eating away at him. One morning, a man called Roy Harrell bumped into Brad just outside the State Department. They were co-workers and on good terms with one another. Roy had seen Brad do a great job for years. They'd connected over a shared love of Italy. But Roy had also seen another side to Brad's career: frustration. Despite working a decent-level job, Brad had consistently run into roadblocks in his career progression. Today was no different. Brad told Roy he'd been passed over for a promotion yet again. He couldn't believe it. What else did he have to do to climb the ladder? Roy chatted with him for a while before Brad told him that he wasn't feeling very well, must have been coming down with the flu or something. Roy helped him hail a cab and sent him home. This was the last time he saw Brad for a very, very long time. One day later, a ranger in a national park in Columbia, North Carolina, was called out to respond to a brush fire. Someone out in the woods had started a small blaze. Thankfully, it was March, so the fire hadn't spread too far yet. The ranger was able to get the fire back under control when he noticed a few things out of the ordinary. He found an empty gas can. It wasn't just a campfire that had gotten out of control. This was deliberate. There was a shovel, too. Somebody had been burying something around here, and as the smoke cleared, the ranger's heart sank. He could see human remains sticking out of a shallow grave. Police arrived on the scene and uncovered 5 bodies, 2 adult women and 3 young boys. They checked them against their current missing persons records and found nothing. No one had reported any of these victims missing. Their clothes had all tags from expensive stores from Maryland, but that was all they had to go on. That is, until a neighbor noticed the Bishops were missing from their home. The identities of the bodies were quickly confirmed: Brad Bishop's wife, mother, and 3 sons. The scene at the family's home painted a grim picture. Blood spatters on the walls told the story of what had happened. Brad had returned home after having bought all of the tools he used to carry out the murder. Using a hammer he purchased that day, he first caved in his wife's head while the children were asleep in bed and his mother was out walking the dog. Upon her return, he bludgeoned her before going upstairs to kill the boys as they slept. Loading the bodies into his station wagon and taking the dog with him, Brad drove down to North Carolina to dispose of the bodies. From there, he bought tennis shoes before driving to the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, abandoning the car and disappearing, but not forever. This is where the story takes a wild turn. The FBI had long theorized that Brad may have fled the country. This was in the 70s, long before 9/11 changed airport security forever. Some thought he could have boarded a flight to Europe to live out his longtime dream of working in Italy. Others were convinced he was still somewhere in the U.S. Roy Harrell, Brad's former co-worker, and one of the last people to see him face-to-face, was traveling in Italy. He was heading through Sorrento when he needed the toilet. Stopping at a bus station, Roy pushed his way into the toilets and did his business. As he was washing his hands, getting ready to head back out, he heard another man enter the restroom. Roy glanced up nonchalantly at the bearded man walking past him and instantly felt his heart stop in his chest. It had been over 2 years, but he knew that face immediately. Brad Bishop. Despite a thick beard and different hair, Roy knew his coworker without a shadow of a doubt. Trying his best to keep a low profile, Roy waited outside the restroom and tailed Bishop. He followed him from a distance as the man walked down the cliffs, but before long he lost him. Brad had been walking in the direction of a small dock from which boats head off to Capri. Of all these cases of mysterious missing fugitives, this has to be one of the most remarkable. Not only was Brad Bishop wanted by the FBI and Interpol on 5 counts of murder, he just so happened to bump into the last person he'd seen in his old life at a random toilet in Italy. For that brief window, he was so close to being apprehended and yet managed to slip through the FBI's fingers once again. Bishop was removed from the FBI's most wanted fugitives list on June 27, 2018, leaving the murderer to live his Italian dream without facing any consequences for his actions. Now check out the man who scares even the FBI, or watch this video instead.